President Trump tweeting about James Comey a few seconds ago. The president writing, James Comey is a proven leaker and liar. Virtually everyone in Washington thought he should be fired for the terrible job he did until he was, in fact, fired. He leaked classified information for which he should be prosecuted. He lied to Congress under oath, all caps. He is a weak and untruthful, here's the second part of the tweet we've been waiting for, slimeball, who was, as time has proven, a terrible director of the FBI. His handling of the crooked Hillary Clinton case and the events surrounding it will go down as one of the worst botched jobs of history. It was my great honor to fire James Comey. Back with us now, Maggie Haberman. Well, Maggie, he's not mincing words either, just as James Comey did not in the book. That is very clear how the president feels. How do you read that tweet? Is he calling for something bigger than just venting at his spleen there?
I mean, I don't know what else he could be calling for. I mean, I think that
prosecution?
The question... Right. No. I mean, I think that he might do something that's sort of complaining about that, but I don't think realistically he's going to do anything behind the scenes to make hay with it. I do think that you have this ongoing question of whether he is going to fire the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein or make a move against the special counsel Robert Mueller. The Mueller move seems extremely unlikely. Rosenstein, he's being almost baited by several supporters on television into firing. I'm told by White House officials that so far there is nothing there yet, but it obviously could get there. And that is where I think you will see his reaction. He is going to feel like he has to do something to reclaim the narrative, and just tweeting is not going to be enough because, as we are seeing, Comey and this interview, which doesn't even air until another couple of days, is going to be everywhere, and that is going to make him crazy. Remember, he is going to be, I believe, in D.C. this weekend. I don't think they have plans. And then he was supposed to be at the Summit of the Americas. They canceled that. He is then going to go to Mar-a-Lago next week for a summit with the Japanese Prime Minister. This is going to be a lot of downtime with him in front of the TV stewing, and that is always a danger point.
All right, really interesting perspective. The ABC, of course, they're leading the charge here, right? They got the big Comey interview coming Sunday night. They did a poll that went from the 8th to the 11th about who is more believable. And it's 48 Comey, 32 Trump, which means this is really about a battle for a third. And this was before the book came out. What will these numbers mean, Maggie?
Look, I think that I'm actually a little surprised the Comey number is not higher, which I think is reflective of the fact that Comey, partly to the president's point, Comey, I think, considers himself a man of honor, and he clearly has a long record as a public servant. But how he handled the Hillary Clinton email case was pretty controversial, and then moves that he made after it were pretty controversial. So, I mean, I think that Comey is not an unknown figure, and that is an interesting statistic. On the other hand, the points that Comey makes, number one, this is the very first first-hand account that we are hearing, I think, from anyone who is really close to the president about how he handles these issues. Comey's not saying anything that the president's critics have not mostly said over the course of the last 15 months, that he is untethered from the truth, that he views loyalty as the prism through which all else flows, and so forth. But the details with which he is doing it are striking. I do think that the president, who likes to talk about how any narrative that is not set on his terms is fake news, the president's going to have a challenge in trying to tell people that Comey really shouldn't be believed.
This is an aside, or is it? The president announcing that he will pardon Scooter Libby.
Well, he didn't announce it. They've conceded it, but it will happen at some point.
Okay. Yeah. Obviously, connected to Vice President Cheney in the Bush administration. So what's the timing of that all about? And is that a direct message to Paul Manafort?
It's a great question. I mean, I've seen a lot of speculation that it is a direct message to Manafort. It's certainly an indirect message, right? I mean, whether that is the intention behind it, whether they are looking to send a message. I've also seen that this is a message to Comey because of a connection that Comey had in terms of the Libby case. And I think all of the above could be true. I do think that the president, was very conscious last year when he discovered that he actually had pardon power and what that meant, which he didn't really process until after the Joe Arpaio case, according to my reporting. The president was really enthralled by this and loved talking about how he could pardon anybody he wanted to. Not entirely true, but it's close enough. I do think that it is hard not to see, given what we know about how his folks, his legal team, has approached the issue of pardons with witnesses in this case and targets in this case, Flynn and Manafort. It's hard not to see this as somehow related.
Hey, Mag, what's your sense of whether or not, whatever the atmosphere is inside the White House, whatever it is that they're concerned about, that will motivate doing something in Syria?
It's a real question. I mean, I think that there is a high level of concern about that. One school of thought within the White House is that you will see a strike this weekend, in part as a way to get Comey off of television. Knowing what we know about this president, it's impossible to say that that's not, in the air and one of the options they're looking at. I don't have any indication clearly that is where they're going to go. I do think the president is mindful of the loss of life in Syria. I do think that those images trouble him, just as the images from Syria last year did when we had that Tomahawk strike. But I think that anything is in play right now in the context of the president feeling like he is under attack, and that could mean a military strike.
It's been pointed out that we could use a Secretary of State right around now for various things that are percolating. Do you have any sense behind the scenes of any worry that Mike Pompeo's nomination is in trouble?
They feel pretty good at the White House about how Mike Pompeo has handled his confirmation hearing. They believe that he is playing with a pretty difficult confirmation hand, and that he's playing it about as well as he can. But there is concern that he won't.
He kind of blew up their Iran argument about the deal, no pun intended. I mean, the whole reason that the Iran deal stinks, in their theory, is because Iran can get around it. Iran is still doing bad things. It doesn't really deter them. And he said that there's no expectation that they're going to do anything to do a bomb anytime soon, whether or not there's a deal.
Right. That's right, which is probably the truth, but certainly not how we have heard certain parts of this argument before. Look, they generally, again, though, they are not focused on the policy areas where he contradicted the president. They are just focused on him convincing enough Democratic senators to get this through.
Maggie Haberman, great to talk to you. Thank you very much for sharing all the reporting.